Hey, make sure you stay around to the end of the podcast because Paul's going to do unspeakable things with this banana.
Wait, what?
Hey, welcome to the BM podcast. Maybe I shouldn't shorten that.
Hmm.
Today we have Paul Harris, a young guy that works at a modern dealership, but at his heart, he's a vintage guy. He's got an old soul, as they say.
Yep. I still have a passion for carburetors and two strokes.
All right,
So
welcome, Paul.
yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, good to see you.
Congrats to the new channel.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate it very much. So we'll just start with like a brief history. You don't have to go through your whole life or whatever, but like how long you been on motorcycles? What do you like to ride? What do you got in the garage right now?
Um. Yeah. Back in where I grew up, if you were 14 years old, you could buy a moped.
Yeah.
So think scooter with pedals. And ride it street legal and get actually a license for it. So when I was 14, I bought a Puch Magnum 2. In middle school, showing up on that was kind of cool.
Oh, I bet.
And then the second I went to high school, it was the lamest thing in the world. So traded that and got a CB 750 back in high school. So that was like my first real bike.
Yeah.
Since then, I've had a lot of cafe racers, a couple dirt bikes, enduros. I mostly buy and flip, but I do like to enjoy them for the time that I have them. So once I get them running, it's pretty common for me to ride them around for a month or two before I sell them. I've probably owned more than 80 bikes at this point.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of scooters in the mix too because they sell well here in St. Pete, Florida. But there's always something interesting going on in my garage that I'm working on, and uh, it's always fun to have something to go out and rip, especially if you got someone coming into town to let them borrow an extra bike. So
Oh, that is cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I tried that for a bit when I had two bikes, but it never worked out where anybody ever got to ride the second one. So
yeah. Well, it also takes a lot of trust too. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah. And my second bike wasn't like a $2,000 flip. It was like a $12,000. So it's kind of like, I want to make sure they can actually ride before I put them on it.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what do you got now?
Um,
What's your main bike? I know what it is, but I'm asking for the people at home.
I bought it new, but it's a 2016 Triumph Thruxton 1200.
Yep.
Also in the garage, I've got a 75 BMW R60/6. I've got a 1990 Harley Sportster that's a Sportster chop, big stretched front end, all that kind of stuff. I've got a Honda CL 350. I just won that one, as you may know.
Yeah.
And then I've got three dirt bikes in there at the moment.
Wow, wow.
Yeah,
Do
so
you actually go out like dirt biking or do you just buy them for flips?
I've done it once and I had a good time with it. But at the moment, I'm working 6 days a week and I never have time to actually go out and hit the trails. But
I feel that, yeah.
I live in a neighborhood that is dirt bike on the street. Uh, like they're definitely fans of it. So like me ripping a little wheelie down my street, the neighborhood kids are always clapping and cheering.
Yeah.
Uh, no problems whatsoever where I live. So
Yeah, my neighborhood kids are always so disappointed by me because I go riding by and they're always going wheelie wheelie and I'm like I can't do a freaking I'm not doing a wheelie on this bike especially.
yeah, you got a little bit nicer of a bike than $500 pit bike. So
Yeah, yeah. If I wouldn't mind like learning on like a little bike like that, but yeah, I'm not gonna just go out and start practicing wheelies on my $20,000 500-pound tiger.
it's an expensive lesson if you
If you mess
do
up.
make a mistake on yours for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a buddy actually. He was there. So Paul and I just missed each other this last weekend. There was a
Vintage bike event.
vintage bike event at like a St. Pete hotel. It's a really cool place called the Hollander, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's an old school hotel, but they've kind of fixed it all up, made it real nice. The pool area's got all the cabanas, and it's always hopping with tons of people on the weekends. And
For a hotel that's not on the beach, it
yeah,
is so it carries a lot of cool factor. They host a lot of events. They do trivia nights, and bar specials and weekday nights are really cool.
right.
They have a really good community that comes out to their events, and they cater to locals as well. So it's not just people on vacation.
Right, yeah, it was. You could definitely tell it was a local crowd,
Yeah.
especially with the vintage. They had all the women were wearing the vintage swimsuits and the headscarves and all that stuff and the
Yep.
glasses and
They had a live rockabilly band, which I'm a fan of. I know how to dance a little bit, so that's always kind of fun when you actually have music like that. And
yeah,
then out in the parking lot, I saw some lead sleds. So there were some old Mercuries and 50s cars.
yeah. They had a whole row of '50s cars, and then they had running adventures out there with a bunch of old, like late '60s, early '70s motorcycles.
Yep, our
So
friend Brad and Ty brought out 5 bikes, something like that,
yeah,
but a lot of cool stuff like
and then they held, which
oh yeah.
we'll go ahead and get to it now. So they held a raffle, and I was so excited because it was actually my birthday Sunday.
Oh man, happy
Yeah,
birthday.
yeah. So I bought that ticket. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be my lucky day. I'm gonna win this bike. And then like about 5 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I didn't get a call. So I look on Facebook, and here's you sitting there with the bike, and I'm like, God dang it. Well, at least somebody I like won it.
I am not historically lucky. I don't usually win scratchers, lotto tickets, anything like that. But this particular Sunday, I won the raffle bike, which was a '68 Honda CL350. It's been converted to a cafe racer, and I was over the moon when they called out my name.
Yeah, it's been like restored and everything. It looks really
Yep,
nice. Yeah.
powder coated frame, runs like a top. They went through it, great paint job.
It's a single?
It's a twin.
Oh, is it a twin? Okay.
Yeah, twin with twin carburetors. I know the CB350 platform pretty well, wrenching those back in the day. This one doesn't really need anything. But it's already been converted to a cafe racer. So it's got like the rear sets that are way far
A little
back.
short fender in the front.
And it's got there's a name for the handlebars. Let's call them Daytona just because that paints a picture, but there's a more specific name to it. But I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to old Hondas. So if it's CL, I'm actually thinking about making it back to a scrambler. So I've already scoped out a couple of high side pipe exhaust on eBay, the proper foot pegs to it, and I think I'd like to see it more of a scrambler as it
I
should
think
be.
the foot pegs were kind of set far back on it too.
So I'm getting rid of those. I
Yeah,
kind of
I
stopped.
was I was sitting there on the couch looking at it, and I was like, "Damn, are those foot pegs on the
They're
pretty
way,
back?" Yeah, they're really far back.
you know, when you're riding it, it's comfortable, but it does take away your ability to have a passenger.
Oh yeah,
So I don't know, like old bike like that, I like having a passenger on the back. So
yeah. I'm
the
putting my hand up right now.
yeah, right. So
Imagine you and I, like both 6'2", 3,
uh
500 pounds of dude on there.
it's a lot of men on a little bike, I'll say that. But it could be done. But yeah, my girlfriend's passenger princess all the time, and she always likes when I have a bike that's upright that we can ride two up on.
Right.
As opposed to, that lean forward. She's not a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
So I really want to see myself turn this back into the scrambler that it should be. And
No offense to Ty and Brad for what they did.
they didn't make it that, so
Oh, okay.
they're offended. Yeah, they
Uh,
found it like that. It was one man's vision before them, and it's not his bike anymore. So
good, good.
that's the cool thing about a bike. You can make it whatever you want to be.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And I already made you an offer. I'm like, oh, if you want to sell it, let me know.
Yeah, happy birthday. Nah, this one's mine.
Oh, I got to try, right?
Right.
So your day-to-day job, you work at a pretty large dealership, a local dealership.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be carrying the t-shirt today. I just came
Well, you
straight from
came
work.
straight from work, yeah.
So,
So yeah, so it's Moto. It's in Tampa on Dale Mabry. It's a big. They used to be a 3 bike dealer, right? 3 brand.
yep. So we sell new Yamaha, Indian, and Kimco are some of the and KTM. Sorry.
KTM, yeah.
We still have Kimco. Indian, we've parted ways with. Nothing wrong with Indian, just moving a different direction.
Yeah.
But Yamaha's our big one, a lot of KTMs, and then Kimco does scooters. And a lot of people don't know this, but they actually make ATVs as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And big ones too, like 700 cc's. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I started there about 2 or 3 months ago.
You were at a smaller dealer before. They did mostly scooters and stuff.
Mostly scooters, Chinese ATVs, and dirt bikes. I started picking up weekend shifts at Moto because I'd been talking with their management team over there, and I wanted to make sure that I was a good fit. I'm not the world's greatest mechanic yet. That's my aspiration in life.
Right.
But I've done PDI for 2, 3 years, and I'm pretty good at wrenching on carburetors and old bikes. So I started picking up weekend shifts, and they liked what I could do. And then the one day, they mentioned that they needed someone to change tires, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can do tires." And I saw their eyes light up, like, "Oh, you can do tires?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So they immediately put me in the tire machine all weekend. But
Yeah.
that was the door
And
to
probably the more you do tires, the faster you get at it, right?
yeah, for sure.
Because I watch these videos of guys trying to do it at home, and they're like, it's a struggle.
So they've got like the Weaver machine. So, you hook it up to the air compressor and everything, and it does all the work for you. And then they actually have a balancer. When I was working on scooters that are 50 cc's, you don't have to balance
Balance
all
the
the
tires,
tires.
really.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, I was watching a video of
yeah.
from that already made for Revzilla,
Okay.
where they were
Did you have a
the shop manual video, when he was like showing how to balance a tire, basically, just literally like letting it settle or whatever. Which I know that's if you don't have a machine or whatever.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
If you don't have a machine, honestly, the easiest way is balancing beads. There's a formula they give you for the size of the tire,
yeah.
and then you take out the valve core and you pour in balancing beads, and as the wheel starts spinning, it balances it out.
Oh,
So you don't need any specialty tools. You don't see it too commonly, but we've got a real Weaver one, so it tells us exactly where to add the wheel weights and everything like that.
very cool.
But yeah, very, very useful skill to learn. And since then, they knew I worked on scooters, so I started jumping on scooter repairs that some of the techs actually were struggling with. But I'm like, oh no, I've seen a million of these. Like, the one issue was they put a fuel pump on the scooter, and one of the prongs got bent, and it was a Honda Ruckus,
Yeah,
and it makes a very distinct sound where you'll hear the fuel pump click on and then it like clicks off after like a second. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know exactly what the issue was. So I figured out the problem really fast, but that's just because I had experience with it.
right. So they
Uh,
consider the Ruckus a scooter, I guess.
it's a scooter for sure. Yeah. But
I just know them from bike nights. I don't.
yeah, the stretch ones and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then gradually working more and more, they've got me signed up for this online program with Yamaha where I can earn certifications. So
Yeah,
lot of pathways towards getting to where I want to be in life.
so I mean, I used to have a Yamaha Tracer.
The tracers are so cool.
Yeah, it's a
The
bad.
new ones have the radar or the lidar. I forget which
Yeah, yeah. It's got
inside
the
of
front
them.
rear radar, the adaptive cruise control and all that. Yeah, it's really nice. Of course, they jack the price up too.
Yeah, and I still like Triumph just because that was the bike that means a lot to me now. But I got to ride a tracer, and that's an incredible bike.
It is. I mean, I do miss like the acceleration and stuff. I know that the Tiger's not slow or anything. It's fine, but it just doesn't feel the same. The way that bike revs up is just, and same with the MT-09 or the new was it the R9? Is that the new one?
R9's the new one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just came out.
Have you ridden one of those yet?
I've ridden two. From what I know of, there's only four of them in Florida. I did PDI on a blue one and a red one.
PDIs, I was like putting them together.
Yeah, that
Like when they
come out of the
come up.
crate. I
Yeah.
mean, they're mostly built, so just final stuff to it. But the most recent one was a red and white. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I prefer naked bikes just stylistically, as opposed to like a full fairing sport bike.
Yeah, I like the
So the MT10s,
I
MT09s,
like the XSR
the XSR 900s are
because it's
big
basically an MT-09, but it looks cool.
retro style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I tried to when our friend Jose, who's been on the show, he uh he got an MT-09, and I tried to get him to get the XSR, but he rode them both, and he's just like, I think the MT-09's better. I'm like, maybe it is better, but it doesn't look as cool.
It doesn't look as cool, but yes, the MT-09 is the better handling bike for sure.
Yeah,
And they
they're
make
so close in geometry and everything. They're pretty much the same, right? Like
basically the same motor. It probably is the exact same motor. I
it
don't know
is.
if
Yeah,
there's any internal
yeah, I don't think so.
tuning or anything like that. And then they make a couple of variations of the MT-09 that have upgraded. It's
He's
ESP.
got the
Oh, he's got that one?
he's got the what is it? The
I think it's the SP is what it's.
yeah, he's got the SP. Yeah,
So it's got Brembros, it's got the fancy suspension, everything. It's an incredible machine.
yeah, he's got
Um,
that one.
uh, I don't really get to ride them that much though. Like
Yeah.
for the most part, it goes from the service bay into the showroom. So we're talking just the parking
What's
lot.
funny about those is they got such a small gas tank. Like when we go out riding, like he's like, "Oh, I gotta stop for gas,"
Yeah,
and then we like ride for a couple. I gotta stop for gas. I'm like, I still have a half a tank, but he's like, I'm out, like
yeah.
so.
A lot of the bikes I actually get to test ride are like 10 or 20-year-old used ones that
Yeah, because you guys have a huge selection there, like everything.
yeah, well, we service just about anything too.
Yeah,
We don't service a whole lot of gold wings or anything big like that. I think they kind of they pokes the fun at me. They're like, "Oh, you like old Hondas and carburetors?" I'm like, "I sure do." And they're like, "Here's a Honda Valkyrie." And I'm like, "Oh no, it's because 6 cylinders, 6 carburetors." We got it running, everything worked out great on it, but it was a lot of bike. I'll say that. But we get to test ride anything. We do a certain amount of work too. You're supposed to take it out for a test
of
ride.
course, right.
And doing an oil change, that doesn't warrant a test ride. But some of the bigger repairs we get to take
But
them
yeah, so
on.
I used to take my Yamaha there for service, so I'm pretty familiar with the service department there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've gotten to hop on a lot of bikes that I've dreamed about, and I'm not the type of person to be like, "Oh, I like your bike. Can I take it out for a test ride?" I've always grew up with, if you can't afford to replace it,
Right.
you shouldn't ask to borrow it. So,
I
um,
mean, for like an individual or from like a dealer?
individual, like
Oh,
my friends, like, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I have friends with BMW S1000 double Rs. I don't have $30,000 in my bank account just chilling around right now, so I'm not gonna ask them to
right,
borrow it.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did a bike swap a few months ago, and like did like a rotation where three of us were swapping the bikes or whatever. That was pretty cool, you know. But I also do like anytime they have those dealer test days or whatever.
I've done a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean they're okay because usually just go around like a big block basically, and you don't really get to depending on like. So there's a guy that works for Ducati, Fabrizio or whatever.
Okay.
If he's leading your test ride, you're gonna have a lot of fun
I've
because
heard stories.
yeah, yeah, he's he's willing to push the bike,
And the
But
group ride.
yeah, and a group ride, yeah, it's true, 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 yeah. Yeah, actually, you and I have another connection. Last year we both helped plan the Distinguished Gentleman's
The
Run together
DGR. Yeah.
with Ty, the guy you mentioned earlier. Yeah,
Yep.
he's been doing it now for I don't know since well, he's the only one who's ever done it here in this area, right?
He's done the last 10 plus years. I've done 7 of them.
Yeah.
The first year I went out to Orlando, I heard that there was some kind of issue where Tampa Triumph wasn't okay at the time with the DGR being hosted at another dealership. And I think the ride 1 year started at Eurocycle. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so Tampa Triumph encouraged all of the guys that bought Triumphs
To go
to
to
go to
Orlando.
Orlando.
I got you.
And that was 2016 when I picked up my Thruxton. So I didn't even know that Tampa had one. So I did the Orlando DGR, which was pretty cool. I mean, we had a
Yeah.
great time. But I found out that we had a local one. And that's actually part of the reason how I met Ty. And he goes, "Why didn't you just come to ours?" I'm like, "Didn't know it was a thing." So,
Yeah.
been going to him every
The
year.
really funny thing is like when I bought my first bike coming back into motorcycling like 7 years was 2017. When I bought that Street Cup, I was filling out the paperwork, and Ty worked at Tampa Triumph at the time.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was standing there, and the guy that sold me the bike goes, "Hey, you should go on his ride tomorrow." And I was like, Okay, what ride is it?" And he's like, "Oh, your bike's perfect for it. It looks like it's a retro looking bike, and you dress up real nice or whatever." And I'm like, Okay."
Oh, that was the DGR. That was your intro to it?
Yeah, I hadn't ridden a bike. Well, I've ridden them like I've hopped on friends' bikes over the years, but I mean, I hadn't like really ridden a bike out and about for like 20 years. And I bought a brand new bike and I rode it home. And then I got dressed up the next morning and I rode
And
to
did a
St.
group
Pete
ride with 200
and
people?
did a group ride with 200 people.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you enjoy group rides with that large of a number of people or not?
I honestly don't.
Okay.
I don't like it. I mean, I do the DGR every year just because it's a whole event and you're dressing up or whatever. But they have all these, they have a lot of charity runs around here and poker runs and Santa toy rides and all that stuff. Especially the ones at out of like Burt's and St. Pete.
Hmm.
Like there's a big Harley dealership there in St. Pete, and there's also like a Orange County Chopper, massive entertainment venue there, and they do a lot of like huge group rides out of there with like 300, 400. I've done a couple of them, which is how I know I don't like them because it's just so boring.
For me, it wasn't the boring. It takes one person to make that really scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Because there's always somebody that looks away, or what happened in the DGR last year. Though, so I got to lead the ride last year
Yeah.
because I helped create the route, and we were going over one of the local bridges here, and I didn't even know about it because I was in the front, and we had police escort and all that, and we got to the midway stop, and the cops came up to me. And they're like, "Hey, did you hear about the crash?" And I was like, "What?" Yeah, and one of the guys is basically, I don't know, he looked away or whatever, and then he looked ahead and panic braked, and then he was on an old Triumph, and he freaking
It was a dead straightaway too. It was on a
yeah, it
bridge.
was a dead
There
straightaway. It
was
just
3 lanes,
the problem is,
no
it
traffic.
just starts that rubber banding effect where you get too far apart, and then everybody's got to speed to catch up, and then they get up on the thing and have to hammer their brakes, and yeah, so
Yeah, I watched the video. I didn't see him go down, but that was
yeah,
definitely
I saw a video
unfortunate.
because of this kid that was riding behind him, got it all on his GoPro or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there is because you got to stay close together, otherwise cars cut in and all that. But then, like you said, somebody could break or look away or try and text somebody or whatever and cause a huge thing. But
I think five's a good number for me, give or take, for group rides, especially if I know the people. That's a good number.
yeah,
And people see you, you're having fun. If you got comms on, you can tell people about potholes or,
right.
sand in the corners. 200 gets a little crazy. The St. Pete Fools is a charity event that also puts on a good ride.
Yeah. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll go to the start point
Yep.
and I'll hang out or whatever on the bike, and then like
Oh, and not do the ride?
we'll pull out of the parking lot, and then they'll start going, and I'll just turn off, or I'll go to the end and meet them at the end. I don't like ride, you know.
Yeah, and there's something about being in a group ride with tuner bikes. It's a lot of fun,
I went on a Saturday
up
with
until it goes bad.
Yeah, I went on a Saturday ones where there's a local group here called Bay Area Riders, and they're actually a pretty varied group. They have a bike night every Tuesday at Tampa Joe's, and it's a huge bike night. And then when they do events, like a lot of people show up, and they had just like a regular Saturday bike ride. And
Hmm.
some friends of mine were going. They're like, "Come on, you got to go!" And I was like, "It's like me, you, and 20 sport bikes or whatever." And I get there, and I'm not kidding. There was like 100 bikes at this gas station, and like in the morning,
Yep.
and it wasn't the DGR, and we don't have police escorts. And they immediately went and got on the freeway, and we were going like 100 miles an hour with 100 motorcycles, and there was choppers, and there was like full baggers, and there was guys on BMW thousand
S1000s, yeah.
R's, yeah, and people on hooligan bikes, and it's just like it was bananas. They're ripping in and out of traffic, and I'm like, I was it was fun to see it, but I'm like, yeah, we got to that next stop, and I'm like, all right, gotta see you later,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've done a couple beer group rides before. They do get a little fast, especially on bridges.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I don't know what it's about a bridge, but everybody just goes from
but I'm old enough now.
what's the old joke from not Star Wars, but the mock movie where he's like goes to ludicrous speed or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm old enough now where I usually will scope about the start and end point. And if you guys want to go ham, great. I know where to meet you,
Exactly.
On my group rides, we always had a rule where if you ever make a turn, if you lose the guy behind you, you make your turn, but you stop just after the turn so they can see you.
Yeah.
That way you don't lose everybody else.
Right.
That's usually like if we're doing North Carolina, Tennessee is usually more where that pulls into play. But that's a good rule of thumb for
I
anybody out there that wants to do group rides.
so
If you want to go fast, just wait at the next turn. That way you don't lose your group.
right. Yeah, I'm an admin for our local Tempe Classic Riders group, so we do a lot of like group rides, but they're usually medium sized. Like,
30.
well, no, you might get like 6 guys, or then you might get sometimes occasionally get like 18 guys or whatever. And I end up leading a lot of those rides, and it's pretty daunting to lead one of those rides because you're like constantly looking in the mirror, like you said, trying to make sure you don't lose anybody.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people just randomly stop. There's like, oh, I don't want to go anymore, or I want to go to the gas station, and then you go around the corner, like, oh shit, I'm sorry, trying to count the bikes in my little 3-inch mirror. And I'm like, shit, we had 12 guys, now we've got 9. Where did those 3 guys go?
Now, remind me, do you use comms when you ride or no?
I have comms, and sometimes I'll connect with like Jose or one of the other guys, but honestly, we probably should have the guy in the back on the comms. That way he could tell what happened to the people.
So back, let's call it 2016. I remember when I was doing a lot of group rides, we had a Senna, but if you get out of range of the bike in front of you, it doesn't work very well.
Right.
But from what I
They
understand,
got the mesh.
these
Yeah.
newer ones have the mesh where it's kind of like a radio.
Like a chain. Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as you're within so many feet of the person in front of you, you all stay in contact. I don't really understand how that works, but it sounds like I need to get a new comp system for something like
Yeah. They're
that.
expensive now too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
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 I'm always
You probably have a discount there at Moto. Do you guys sell them there?
they do actually. I probably should ask questions about that. We sell Cardos there.
Yeah. I have a Cardo. That's what I got.
And Cardo is better than the Senna from what I've been told. The reason I got a Senna is because it had a camera in it.
Oh,
It's a Senna 10C. It was really easy to just tap it and start recording. And I was really happy with it, but it's so old now that it doesn't even pair to my phone anymore.
yeah.
So it's
That's
it's a dinosaur. That's what it
that's
is.
technology for everything. Yeah.
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 Um, there was one other brand too. I'm trying to think what it was. Yeah, come back to that.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. That's a good idea actually. Being on comms with like with the person that's riding sweep or whatever, just so. Usually what happens is whoever's back there will ride up and tell us, hey, you know, they stopped or so and so's tires flat or whatever it is,
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I mostly enjoy going out with like just two or three guys because then like you get into a rhythm with each other. If you're in traffic or you're going down a country road and there's one car in front of you,
Three's
you
easy.
just kind of go like this, and everybody just goes around them. But if there's 10 guys, you can't do it because you're like, well, somebody's going to get caught from the oncoming traffic or whatever. There's so much more risk with a big group.
Yeah, three's fun and definitely easy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mostly do like small groups like that, but that's what I prefer anyway. So, all right, so let's get back to the dealership here.
Cool.
So you said the Indians leaving, but before, like in general, like which bikes do you think were, at least in this area, were selling better? Like the Indians, the Yamahas, the KTM, like, and then also like not just like brand, but like what style seems to be the most popular right now? Like, is it adventure bikes or is it mid-size, like, MT09 style or
So, right now, I would say that Yamaha and KTM for our new bikes seem to be selling the fastest. Um, we see a lot of dirt bikes go out. KTM, you kind of think dirt bikes when you think KTM.
right?
And then even Yamaha, they do the 450, they do 250s, they have the TW 200 still. We're seeing a lot of MT03 and R3s go out. Very fun bike. I've never understood in America why small CC bikes aren't more popular.
Yeah.
There's something like an R3 can get you down the highway, no problem. Um,
There's a kid at my gym who I've talked to a couple of times. Because he's there. He must work out 7 days a week because no matter which day I go, he's there. His bike's always parked there. I thought he worked there.
yeah,
And then one day he was coming out to get on his bike, and I'm like, "You don't work here?" And he goes, "No." I'm like, "Jesus Christ, you work out every freaking day?"
good for
But
him.
he's got a purple R3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's a lot of fun to ride those.
yeah, and he loves it. But he's looking now to get into a bigger bike because he bought it when he was like 18, which is smart. Like his dad said, "No, no, let's not get you." Some of these kids, they go out like
And get a
no
high.
experience, they get a freaking high boost or something, and they get kill themselves. Like you don't. But now he's got a couple years under his belt and he's done some more training programs and yeah, sure.
So, I'm sure price points always
And
dictate
that's the other
sales to a
thing.
certain
Yeah,
degree.
like you can get one of those for under $10,000.
KTM has the Duke 390 series. With the 390, they also have an adventure, and they also have uh, let's call it an adventure bike. Is kind of what it's set up to be. All of those bikes are priced around $10,000, and I don't do sales. That's not my thing, so I don't always ask about how much they cost.
Right.
But KTM's got a lot of really good lineups for under $10,000 that can do a lot. Yamaha in the same 300cc range has the R3 and the MT03, both very capable bikes. We see a lot of those go out. I don't see a lot of the big baggers go out. We have a Tracer. I haven't seen anyone buy one of those yet, but I think it's an incredible value for bike.
Yeah, when I was looking for a tracer, like I owned one for like 2 years.
Hmm.
And I bet you I could count on like one hand the amount of them I saw out in the wild, like,
Yeah.
riding around. I mean, I rode the one all the way across the country and back. And like everywhere I stopped, people were like, "What is that?" Like everybody's like, what kind of bike is that?" Like they have no idea.
I've been told that America tells dealerships, tells motorcycle companies what they want.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, if you just made a 650 cc, sport tour, that's exactly what we want. And then they make it and then no one buys it. But then 10 years after they quit making it, suddenly they surge in popularity. That's just something about, I guess, the American bike market that seems to happen is you don't know what you want until it's gone, not to be cliche.
Yeah, when I started looking for a bike, because I had the Bonneville, and I was like, I was planning this cross country trip, and I wanted like a sport tour kind of bike. I wanted to do all. And I was looking at adventure bikes, but I really wanted. I knew I wasn't going to do a lot of off roading, so I kind of was watching all these reviews, and I think I don't know, Motorcycle Magazine or somebody named it Bike of the Year, like in 2020 or whatever it was, whatever they changed the model, whatever they changed the design of it to the one I had. And I was like, oh, and I started looking for them. And Maramoto, they only had one, and it was blue, and I wanted a red one. That's why I didn't get it from them.
that's
Because
the only decision. Yeah.
yeah, because they were my local dealer, and I was like, oh, I want a Tracer, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the price. I'm like, oh, that's good. And they're like, do you have a red one? No. So then I ended up having to go all the way to Orlando to find a red one, you know, um, which is the only reason why I bought it from them. And yeah, and then like I said, rarely ever saw one on the road. Like occasionally, I'd always see used ones like at all the dealerships, but they were always the previous iteration with the ugly headlights and all that. They used to be called oh, what are they called before? They had another name for them, like a just something nine, but before they started calling the Tracer. But
I
anyway,
can edit this part out, but I think it was the FJ.
yeah, FJ09. That's
Yeah,
you're right,
it
FJ09.
was before my time, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And actually, I even looked at they have that
I actually think the FJ9 looks like a tiger, which is funny.
yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
But they also had that that low slung like cruiser, the FJ 1300 or whatever.
Yeah, the star. Yeah.
Yeah, that well, yeah, it was like a kind of like a Hayabusa looking bike.
Oh, not a cruiser.
No,
Okay.
not a cruiser. I say cruiser, but it was a sport tourer also, but it was not as upright as the Tracer. I looked at those, and they were actually pretty expensive though. They were in the 20s, big horsepower, like 180 type, because a massive four-cylinder engine or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Morimoto, the owner definitely likes to buy a lot of used sport bikes as well. And he gets a lot of them private party. So they'd have a really good selection of used bikes.
I always like just walking in there and walking through the because
Right.
they've got a great, like you said, it's a very varied section, and you see all these cool bikes in there.
So Gixxers, 600, 750s, 1000 sell very quickly. Kawasaki Ninjas, uh, the Honda CBRs, those are coming and going constantly. So our used bike section is probably about as big as our new bike section to a certain degree. And every once in a while there'll be kind of a unique bike in there. Like we had a Husqvarna Vitpillen the other day.
Okay,
Never seen one of those before. It's a really cool looking bike in person. It looks like
yeah, it's
a
very.
Tron bike.
It does. Looks like a
Yeah,
Tron bike. That's perfect description.
it rides very cafe racery. Ours was the 401, so the 400cc. I know that they make a 700cc, and I found out recently, I think it's a single. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I just want to try it just because it's weird.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I rode a big single once. This guy I know had like a hyper motard with a 700cc single or whatever, or maybe it was a not. It was a huge single. It was weird riding that bike because it had so
Ducati.
much.
I didn't know that was a single, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like I think it was the Ducati. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's been a few years ago.
So, we also get a lot of BMWs. So not only the S1000 double R, people already know what that is, but they also make the S1000 XR,
I was
which is
thinking
their
that.
adventure.
Uh,
Love that bike.
yeah, it's not even an adventure; it's just a sport touring.
It's
It's
incredible.
beautiful. Yeah, I mean, Jose and I have been talking about them.
So
Yeah,
I got to ride one years ago, and I don't need that much power in my life currently.
because they make an M version of it as well
Yeah.
with the carbon fiber wheels and everything. That bike is gorgeous. It's like 35 grand though.
Um, I'll come back to that later. I'm not here to sell bikes, but we have an XR right now that's like in the teens and it's nice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
What?
red.
Oh my God.
It came in yesterday.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's been making me think about it. I'll say that.
What's the value of a 2024 Tiger?
You come see us, yeah. So and then they also make the R, but not double R, and that's just more of a standard kind of setup.
Yeah.
R9Ts, stuff like that. And then a bike that I saw, but I never really thought much about was the Kawasaki Z900.
Uh-huh.
You see them,
That's a Cafe Racer looking one?
no, it looks just like a standard.
Okay.
But I've seen them before. I just never thought much about them. That is an incredibly comfortable and fun bike to ride, and they make a ton of power.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Inline four, obviously fuel injected, but it's more upright. So, um,
Yeah, I will never get like a pure sport bike. That was actually my
I
like.
wouldn't say I won't, but I don't need
Well,
it.
if I had 18 bikes like you do, then I wouldn't care. But
I keep one. That's my only thing. So you just gotta start flipping bikes, and then you can justify it to the wife. No,
that
we're
was
just fostering this.
that was my one real gripe with the Tracer was, I bought it because it's supposed to be a touring bike, and the
Yeah.
seat on it and the peg placement made it uncomfortable to sit on for long periods of time. Like
And did you swap out the seat or
I
anything like
I tried everything with that
Okay.
seat. I literally I reupholstered it myself.
Okay.
Like I pulled it off because I looked at sending it. You can send it to Italy or whatever, and I was reading the reviews. People were like, "Yeah, it's a little better." When it got, I'm like, I'm not spending $1,000 to make it a little better.
Yeah.
So I just took it apart and I put more foam in it, and then I tried to. I put it, eventually when I did the cross country trip, I had a pad on it, which actually was pretty comfortable. But I think it's because your feet were slightly behind you, so you couldn't you couldn't push up, and so it also was at a weird pitch. It was pitched forward a little bit,
Okay.
and so when you would just tap the brakes, you would just slide forward onto your nuts.
Ah,
And it was like, I literally bought it. I went for a ride the next day on it, and like I was just cruising around like through Oldsmar or whatever, and I just kept tapping the brakes, going, "Holy shit! Ow, that hurts!" Like,
and did you ever put rubber on the gas tank?
no, but what I ended up doing was, they some everybody complained about it when you start getting
Okay,
like forums, and so some guy had 3D printed some shims, and he also offset the bolts for the tank, so that way you could actually jack the seat up to make it flatter.
cool.
That helped a little bit, but yeah, it's still like I get on that tiger seat and it's just like right out of the box, just so comfortable. Like,
Actually, now that I think about it, the Tracer actually has two seat positions for
yeah,
the
it's got the
back.
low and the high,
Okay, you already
but
did that.
it doesn't alter the
The
angle.
pitch. Okay,
It
okay.
just makes it taller or shorter. So, but yeah, anyway, that was like my one real niggle with that bike was it just the seat. No matter what I did to it, like I was okay on the cross because I was mostly wearing those adventure pants, and they also had like a good support on the back of them.
Sure.
So yeah, it didn't bother me so much. But like I'd hop on it with my jeans on, and I'd be like after an hour, I'm like, God damn, this seat sucks.
Yeah.
Which is not what you want on a bike. You're supposed to sit. I was spending like, especially on the trip, like some days I was on the bike like 9 hours. Like I'd leave in the morning. I mean, obviously I was off and on it all day, but I would get to my hotel at 8, 9 o'clock at night. So I was on it for the whole freaking day, and then it's just like, you know, not comfortable.
I never really wanted to own a cruiser. I know I mentioned I own a Sportster. That just kind of happened. But working in service, we get a lot of like Honda Shadow 750s, 1100s, VTX 1300s. Surprisingly comfortable bike.
Yeah.
And I could see myself owning one for the same reason you took a long trip like that is, oh, okay, if you're going to be stuck in a seat for 9 hours,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, a Tracer's gonna carve the corners
Oh yeah, that was the
way
thing.
better than a
Yeah, like
VTX.
yeah, when I was in California and I was on the Skyway or whatever, like yeah, I would not want to be on a cruiser on that bike.
But between Florida and Texas, I think that cruiser would be calling my name a whole lot better,
Yeah.
and I think I could probably justify the sacrifice of, my entry speeds and stuff like that, ripping through the turns out there, if comfort became that much of an issue.
Yeah, like riding across Kansas, which probably never do that again, but
Yeah,
I did that in like a one single day. I went from Kansas City all the way to where did I go? Oh, to Denver.
okay.
Yeah, and that was like just literally the straightest road you've ever seen.
I heard that
Flattest, straightest, nothing except for windmills and a cup occasionally grain. That was it for like 9 hours. All I saw, like all day. Yeah.
we can let the internet fact checkers get us on this later, but I
Yeah.
heard that Nebraska, Kansas, legally have to have a turn every so many miles on the highway as a way to keep their drivers from falling asleep, going
I
in
wouldn't
straight
believe it.
lines like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But well, the Florida's kind of boring too to a certain degree.
It, wa-
Our
it
roads are flat as pancakes too.
yeah, it wore my tire out. I mean, I ended up having to get a new tire like in Salt Lake City, which I should have done it sooner because I rode all of Colorado on that flattened tire, and so definitely made those mountain roads a little less fun.
Yeah,
Having that flat spot, and then you roll onto the curve of the tire, and then back onto the flat spot.
so, dealership pros, I just ordered a new Michelin Road 6 for
Yeah,
my Thruxton.
yep,
Did a fair amount of research before I decided on that. But because I've got the tire machine now, this is the first time I don't have to pay tire labor to get a new tire because I'm doing it myself.
right,
So
right.
I've always changed tires on like dirt bikes and stuff like that. But for my own bikes, no, I've never done it because I don't have a balancer. So I just ordered it and I'm getting it this week. So
Yeah, I had Road Sixes on it, and then when I got to Utah, only found well, I
did
called.
you do the GT or no?
No, I
Okay.
did not do the GT, which I know is
I also didn't do it, but if you're doing that many miles, I should.
yeah, but when I put the tires on it was like, months before that trip. So but yeah, when I got to Utah and I started calling around, like I called the big dealership there, everything's owned by Karl Malone, the basketball player.
Oh, cool. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, Karl Malone Power Sports or whatever. I called them and they're like, "Oh, it's $375 or whatever." I'm like, "For a tire?" And so I called some other guy and he was like, "Well, we don't do tires, but here, call this guy." And he gave me like a name of like a mom and pop dealer or like guy. And that guy's like, "Oh yeah, I'll meet you here in the morning and I'll put your tire on and I'll fix your chain and all this changeover.
Yeah, I remember you telling the
Yeah, yeah.
chain
So
kept going slack.
I should have changed. He didn't have a new chain. Anyway, that's all. That's another whole other story. But um, yeah, I don't even know what tire he put on it because he's like, I only got one that fits your bike. So I'm like, whatever it is on it,
Take it.
it's better than
Sold.
and for $200 or whatever it was. You know, it was like a lot less. So
Yeah.
which that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about because I have a so I look at it from two ways. Like as a consumer, you always want the best deal, right? So you call
Price
dealerships.
conscious,
Yeah, you
sure.
call dealerships and you're like, oh, I need my 600-mile service, and they're like $495, and you're like, for a freaking oil change. And then on the other hand, if you're a business owner like I am, like you have to make money to employ guys like you, and there's probably like 30 people that work there, right?
There's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you're paying salary of 30 people and all their benefits and the lights and the huge building and the advertising. So, you have to make a lot of money to be able to support all of that. And you don't really make it in sales. I mean, I know they don't make a lot of profit on the new bikes anyway. Probably make pretty good money on the used bikes, I'm assuming.
Uh, the totem pole, I'm down here. So
I'm saying I know you don't
yeah.
know. I know you don't like have but I'm saying like so service is somewhere they can make some money, and they have to, and otherwise they wouldn't be there, right?
I don't think that motorcycle dealerships make as much on service as you'd probably think.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
Like if they're not even making,
They usually itemize the bill for you too, if you look.
yeah, I know. And I'm not really saying tires specifically because
Okay.
you can always get your tire done at Cycle Gear for $25 or whatever.
Um,
You have to take it off yourself, but
yeah, well, that's a lot of it too. Like, a lot of people come in, they're like, "Oh, I just need a tire change." And I remember this one bike was a Honda Fury, so like big chopper.
yeah,
It barely fit on my lift, and then it's shaft drive, and then I had to take the exhaust off to get to it.
yeah,
We're normally supposed to charge extra if you have to take the exhaust off to take off a tire because it takes up my time. But I unintentionally invested way more time in this bike than I probably should have.
right,
It all worked out great, don't get me wrong. But then there's also times that when we're taking off your tire, we're finding other issues, and we'll let you know about that. But there's a lot of work that goes into it. If you want to bring in your tire off the bike, it's a lower charge to do that. So
right.
that's something if you want to save some bucks, great. You can do that. You can go to Cycle Gear.
Yeah, no, but it's a lot of work just doing it yourself at home. Like
Yeah,
you got to have the jacks to lift the bike up. Like I remember when I did it, I had a center stand on the bike, but then the bike still kind of wanted to wobble. So then I had like I think I tied a rope to it or something to keep it down while it was gone or whatever. So
yeah,
like, don't get near the bike; it'll fall over. Like
yeah. Or sometimes, like, if we're working on a 1995, stuff gets rusty. Like sometimes that 1995 tire that by somehow is still on the road, that thing's like stuck on the rim and it takes some effort to get off of it. So,
but yeah,
yeah,
I know I just I have to remind myself that like you can't always just buy everything from Amazon or do everything the cheapest way and then expect like these places to be there when you want to go back when you need them.
yeah.
When it's something you can't do and you can't, you
When
know,
you blow out a tire on your cross country road trip and you're happy that there's a motorcycle dealership that's open on a Saturday that can get you in the same day,
exactly.
just be grateful that those places still exist.
Right. And if
Yeah.
they didn't make any money, then that they wouldn't be there. Right. So, I mean, I understand. It's just as a consumer, you're always like, Jesus Christ, $500 or whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, on that same token, I used to get my car oil changed at Instaquick in St. Pete.
Yeah.
And I remember it was $26. And the last time I went there it was $75.
Yeah.
Same car. And I'm like, how did it triple in value? And I get inflation, things like that.
Oh, I know. I
A
went the
lot
other
of
day.
things are getting more
Yeah. I
expensive.
went the other day for my van and of course, then they always like, oh, you're due for the changing of the oil inside your wheels or whatever. Like there's always something that your service plan calls for this at this point. And I'll do it a lot of times because I'm already there and for $100 or whatever,
Yeah.
and I want to keep the van running. So yeah, but the oil change alone is always like 75, 85, 90. If you go like full synthetic, you're talking like $150 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've also seen people that did do the DIY thing themselves, and then cool, they've got a stripped strip bolt to drain the oil and stuff like that. And
yeah, when
um
I had the Yamaha, because the Triumph has a 10,000 mile interval usually, like the Bonneville did, not my Tiger, but the Bonneville did. But the Yamaha had like a 6,000 mile interval, so it was like, and I was riding so many miles, not even just on the cross country trip, but in general, that I was having to change the oil all the time. So I started just doing it myself.
Yeah,
I ordered the Yamalube from Amazon and thing, and I bought all the different parts that fit exactly right, so I didn't strip anything. And I would keep a log in the little book or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, I
I'm
just
meticulous like that too. Yeah,
well, I was just worried like if I ever wanted to resell it or whatever, which it didn't matter in the end. But so um, so you think so you're the guy that assembles the bikes when they come in.
sure.
So
Final assembly, to be clear.
final assembly. So like, do you see like between the different brands? Do you see like what do you see? What's different?
I used to work at a dealership that made China that was only like Chinese vehicles. It was Chinese dirt bikes, scooters, motorcycles that were street legal. They didn't have instructions. They didn't have torque specs. Um, there wasn't really any paperwork to try to help you out when it wasn't intuitive enough. Um,
You're like, this feels about right.
sometimes the bolts didn't line up from the factory. Now I work on Yamahas and KTM's, and I'm telling you, like, I had a moment the other day. I was putting a YZ250, which is a two-stroke 250 dirt bike together, and I was putting the front wheel on it, and I spun the nut on the front axle, and it just kept going like a roulette wheel because it was so well machined.
Yeah,
And it was a little thing like that where you're like, wow, like, um, little stuff like this, they have so much more pride in their craftsmanship across the board off the brands that I've seen between Indian, Yamaha, and KTM. So much more quality. The metallurgy and all of those compared to the Chinese vehicles I used to work on is night and day difference.
so those weren't like
Those weren't name
they
brands.
weren't CF Moto or whatever.
They weren't even CF Moto.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, like what the like how those would rank against these bikes.
Yamaha, I guess I'll start with the crate. The crates that the Yamahas come in on seem very well engineered the way that they're in there.
They're packaged, yeah.
Yeah, usually the front and rear wheels on a motorcycle are already on it by the time it shows up in the crate. We usually throw the handlebars on, all the controls we torque from the spec. Um, there's not there's not a ton that goes into it usually. On average, it may take between
And
an
they come with the
hour.
fluids in them. You have to put
Yeah,
yeah.
usually there's fluids. We got to check them, of course, because
Yeah.
anything can happen. The Yamahas. So the crates that they come in are very well engineered. The way that they can stack, the way that they come out of the crate. Um, they do a really nice job of boxing everything up. The batteries are usually pretty close to fully charged right from the factory with Yamaha. It's a really smooth operation to that final PDI. KTM's are also similar quality, very, very good in my opinion. KTM's we actually have to hook up to a scan tool. So think iPad. It's from KTM. But if you pour gas in a new KTM out of the crate and try to fire it up, it won't. It's kind of a anti-theft security measure, in my opinion, that if you try to steal one off of a truck, I highly doubt you would ever be able to get it running.
Oh,
So
pretty crazy.
from the factory, we set them up in kind of like a test mode. So it gives it a certain amount of runtime. Let's call it 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, it can't be ridden anymore. And then after you purchase it, of course, it's a different story. We can unlock it. So I got to learn the tooling for all of that. It was kind of interesting. And with the tooling, you can set everything. You can change the background on your display. It can go from metric kilometers to freedom units here in the US.
Right.
So you can do a whole lot with it. There's an amazing amount of technology that's even in the simplest of KTM's lineup, which is, their Duke line of like the 250s and 390s. Way more technology than what I would have probably anticipated. But everything that's coming out of there was packed and built with a lot of pride. So it's nice to see that come out.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, so normally at the end of the show, I like to do a little, like what you've been watching or reading or whatever. So what have you been watching?
I've been watching My Name is Earl as
Is it just because you're like a Jason and what you look alike? Or,
Jason Lee.
yeah, you got
Um,
the mustache and
I
everything.
got the stash rack in this particular month. I don't always have it. Really good show about karma.
I love that show.
Oh, you've seen it.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Back when it was on, which has probably been on for like 10 years or something.
They do a really good
Where
job.
are you watching it? On what service?
Hulu.
On Hulu. Okay, so if you got Hulu and you haven't seen My Name Is Earl, basically this guy is
He
he
was a total scumbag.
he was a scumbag. I forget what was the inspiration to make
He
him.
got hit by a car. So
Okay,
he steals $10 off this guy, buys a lotto ticket, wins $100,000, immediately gets hit by a car.
right,
And while in the hospital, his wife leaves him, and he decides he needs to change his whole life.
right.
And I think that's the opening sequence doesn't really have a song. It's just him explaining that over and over in every episode.
Yeah,
But it's kind of like a layman's terms to philosophy. But it's a really well-written show. The
yeah. The
jokes are
characters on it are all great.
it's
Jamie, what's her name?
Jamie Presley,
Yeah, and then the one
Randy. I can't think of his name.
the big dude.
Randy.
Yeah,
I don't know what his real name is, but he lost a ton of weight in recent
yeah. Now
years.
he's all swole now. Yeah, yeah.
But every episode kind of leaves you like an early like good feeling, good attitude in life. But it's a lot better than when I remember it. But I'm watching that right now.
No, it's great. It's great. So if you haven't seen My Name Is Earl, I definitely recommend going back and watching it. Yeah, maybe I'll go back and rewatch it now because yeah, I you kind of forget about it. You know, like it just it was on for like I don't know 3 or 4 years and
Yeah, I think 6 seasons.
6 seasons.
I'm only
Okay,
in season one, but I just picked it up.
yeah,
I finished Boardwalk Empire. Really happy with that.
yeah,
Boardwalk Empire, New Jersey, 1920s prohibition kind of
yeah.
thing.
I've never
Fantastic show.
watched that, but I hear it's really good. Yeah,
It's really good acting, and then it's a cool time period that sometimes doesn't always get all the glam. Like a lot of movies these days are all about World War II and like the 1950s and stuff like that.
yeah,
1920s and 30s kind of get skipped over.
right.
How about you? Any good movies left?
So I haven't really seen any. I want to go see the 28 Years Later, but I haven't got to it yet. So when I do get around to saying that, I'll make a review and put it
Cool.
on here. But I have been listening much. So if you've got a kid between 15 and 25, you probably heard of Brandon Sanderson. He's a
I've not.
he's like he's a fantasy writer that he's so prolific. Like honestly, I had never really heard of him. My kids just started talking about him, and we share a Audible account, so I see what books they're using or whatever or listening to, and I listen to a lot of books at work. And so I like to be included with the kids. So
Yeah.
I I thought I was jumping into the series they had been talking about, and I grabbed this one book, and it's called let's see, it's called The Final Empire. It's from the Mist Saga or whatever. And I was listening to that, and I was like, hey, guess what, guys? I'm listening to that series you're listening to, and they're like, no, that's not the right one. And his books are insanely long, even like the audio versions. Like this one was like short; it was like 30 something hours. So I got through that one; it was good. And then I started the Way of Kings, and that's like a 5 book series, and they're like 60 hours each. So I just made it through the first one of those. It was really good. It's like magic, but it's based on like there's the magic in the first book, the Mist books is like based on metals. Different metals have different powers. And in this one, it's like um different gemstones have different powers, and then there's like some kind of storm power. I don't know. Anyway, it's super complicated. And all of his worlds are like so complex. They have different kinds of animals and different hierarchies of people and stuff. So pretty good. But anyway, the book I would like to probably recommend that I just started. That's probably more for the mainstream people out there. Is written by a guy named Percival Everett. He he wrote a book. He wrote a movie that came out last year with Jeffrey Wright, where he's an author and he's writing all these like real smart books, but nobody reads them. And then this other African American writer comes out, and she writes all in the style of how people talk on the street, and it drives him crazy because he's like, "Why are we talking down to people? We should be." And he writes a book. He gets drunk and he writes a book to mock her, and then like, of course, it goes
It's a
crazy,
hit.
and all the
Oh,
publishers
yeah.
want it, and then they start trying to change his image and everything. Well, anyway, he wrote a book called James, which is a companion piece to Huckleberry Finn by
Okay.
Mark Twain. Okay, so all right. So he wrote a companion piece to Mark Twain called James, and it's from the perspective of Jim, the slave.
I remember.
Yeah, so in the Huckleberry Finn, like it's all about Huck, and he fakes his own death because he thinks his dad's going to beat him up, and he pours pig's blood or whatever, and then Jim finds out he's going to get sold, so he runs away, and
The raft.
they end up on the raft
Yeah.
together, and they have this whole adventure. And certain points in the book, Jim disappears or whatever, like they get separated because the rafts break or whatever happens. Well, in this version, instead of following what Huck is going to do, you're following Jim. And then like it turns out Jim is not some big stupid slave. He actually taught himself how to read and he could speak like with proper English. And he's like teaching his kids like whenever, whenever you're like you're talking to your master or whatever, don't let it on that you're too smart because they have a perception about you and you want them to believe that the less hassle for you or whatever. So like you're hearing his internal monologue and he's like I said, super smart. He could read, he could write, but then he's like going like and then he's like, oh yes, I'll do that right now, sir, or whatever kind of thing. And then but in his mind he's not thinking that. He's like, oh my God, these guys are so stupid. Why
Thinking
they
it the whole time.
yeah, why they
Yeah.
like he hears Huck and Tom Sawyer coming like in the beginning of the book, they go to play that joke on him, they're gonna nail his hat to the thing and pretend like a witch did it. And he's like he hears him coming a mile away, and so he pretends to be sleeping. He lets him do it, and he's like, "Oh my God, a witch!"
Just to play into
Just
it.
to play into it, just to let him have some fun. But like he's not. So anyway, um, I haven't got to the end yet, but so far it's been great. So definitely check out James by Percival Everett.
I got one movie review.
Okay, go ahead.
I watched The Menu. Do you know of it?
Oh my God, it's great.
You saw it.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, I always critique you for not giving away spoilers. I didn't know anything about this movie, but I ended up watching it, and the premise is it's a Michelin, let's call it five-star chef,
Yeah,
has a private island where he
you have
has
to be invited.
you have to be invited, and the wait list, even if you are somebody's at least a year old, everyone that works there lives and breathes this restaurant.
They grow all the food there. Everything is like handmade and meticulous, and
Yeah,
it's like a it's like a surgical unit.
it is. It immediately turns into a horror movie, and I was not expecting that.
No, it's bananas.
It's every couple of minutes that movie gets crazier and crazier, and it's just a good thrill ride from start to finish.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely loved it.
yeah, it's
Anna
Anna Taylor.
Joy
Yeah,
Taylor,
yeah, Anna Taylor Joy and
um,
Ralph Fiennes.
finds, yeah,
Yeah,
who is phenomenal actor.
yeah, he's great.
Nicholas Holt plays
He's like such a
an
good guy.
Instagram influencer that
Oh my
takes
God, yeah.
pictures. Um, but I ended up watching the movie, and
What's his name's in it too? The Spanish actor. He's like yeah,
John Leguizamo.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
very good actor in that. I we ended up setting up like me and the girlfriend watched it. We set up a charcuterie board,
Yeah.
like with all the extra stuff as we're watching this, and it just made the experience like out of this world. But it's a funny horror movie.
And it's also it's like
It makes you think.
it's a critique, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a critique of that culture, of the whole foodie culture, and like, at a certain point, like so she comes along as a plus one to this guy.
And knows nothing.
She knows nothing about it, and they're like, this is uh foam or
Yeah.
whatever. And she's like, where's the fucking food? I don't why am I eating
This is
foam?
really
This is not food. Can you make me a hamburger? And so like that actually like freaks him out a little bit because he's like, what are you doing here? Kind of thing. Yeah, like you said, it turns into kind of a horror movie, and we probably shouldn't spoil like the twist and why it is a horror movie, but
I'm okay with that.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
because it definitely made more fun to
if
like,
you go into it not knowing anything,
yeah,
aside from what we've just told you, it's not slasher. I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
say
it's not a gory thing, really.
it's not gory. It's not. I don't think it'd give you nightmares to the average person, but it's let's call it a psychological thriller,
Yeah,
maybe.
definitely, I agree.
But at the end of it, it just makes you think. It's great.
It is
Yeah,
really good.
10 out of 10.
That's a great recommendation. I appreciate that.
I try.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and share it with a friend or whatever. Um, go visit Paul at Maramoto. Check me out. I filmed it last night, a video for the Action Motorcycles channel. We're doing a series called Cycle Cinema, and last night we covered Wild One with Marlon Brando.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a 60-some-year-old movie. The original motorcycle movie ever,
Is
really.
that the Hollister one?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. All my notes are right there if you haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he hasn't finished editing yet, but I'm sure in a couple dawn days it'll be out. So I don't know when you're watching this, sometime in the future. Um, Anyway, yeah, go check that out and just subscribe to his channel too. It's very cool. He's a lot of good riding videos on it. He's got a drone, so he just everything he does looks better than what I do. So because he takes his drone out, and he sets it up like up high, and he does all the corners and stuff. So looks cool. But anyway, like I said, thanks again for joining us, and go
Go
ride a
ride a
motorcycle.
motorcycle.
That's
Yeah.
right. Got it, man. You got it.
Till next time.
Yep. Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Let's see. Let's stop the recording.
Hey.
Dude, that